It was a bitter winter's day towards the end of 1889 that found Sherlock Holmes and myself gratefully ensconced in our rooms in Baker Street, each engaged in his own individual pursuit. Outside, an Arctic chill had descended upon London, and with each blast of frigid air that rattled our window-panes, I found myself taking renewed comfort in the warmth and light that our well-stoked fire afforded. I was in the midst of reviewing my notes concerning some of Holmes's more intriguing cases of the past year, when a heavy tread upon the stairs foretold the arrival of an unexpected visitor. The resounding knock that echoed through our chambers caused Holmes to look up sharply from the chemical experiment in which he was engaged, and I moved quickly to open the door. As I did, I was greeted by an apparition that fully filled our doorway, a giant of a man, rendered even taller by the shiny top hat he wore. Our visitor, doubtless accustomed to the looks of slack-jawed wonder, similar to the one I was wearing, stepped into our rooms without invitation and casually flicked off the few snowflakes that had had the temerity to make their way to his collar, as he surveyed our quarters in a cool and hurried manner. At length his gaze lit on my friend Sherlock Holmes, and, removing his hat, he executed a sweeping bow.
"Mr. Sherlock Holmes," he boomed, "it is indeed a pleasure." "And a pleasure it is to meet you as well," replied Holmes, "Mr. Morgan Clarkwell." Our visitor seemed delighted by Holmes's response. "Wonderful, Mr. Holmes. You are everything I expected. Pray tell your line of deduction." "I'm sure my explanation can wait until you've made yourself comfortable before the fire," answered Holmes. "Watson, be so good as to fetch our guest a brandy. I'm sure he must be chilled after his journey." "You're very kind," said Clarkwell as he removed his coat. "It is somewhat bracing out there."
After our guest was seated with his brandy, he repeated his query to Holmes, who shrugged slightly from his armchair before replying, "It was quite elementary, Mr. Clarkwell. Upon your entrance you made a close scrutiny of our rooms before addressing or even looking at me. I observed your gaze as it travelled the length of our mantelpiece, lingered thoughtfully on the remains of our recent lunch, and at length examined with some interest the mass of papers which Watson has seen fit to strew about the floor. Long experience has borne out the fact to me that such behaviour is only observable in 3 professions, namely housekeepers, policemen, and private detectives. Now, if you'll pardon my saying so, Mr. Clarkwell, you haven't the look of a housekeeper, and although I am not familiar with all of the members of Scotland Yard, I surely would have noticed a man of your stature by this time. Thus, the latter choice was the only one open to me, a choice strengthened by the recollection that only last month I read of a case solved by London's second private consulting detective, a Mr. Morgan Clarkwell." "Marvellous!" cried our visitor as he clapped his hands together. "I'm glad to see that the reports of your powers have not been exaggerated, Mr. Holmes." "You're too kind," replied Holmes softly, although it was evident that he was pleased at Clarkwell's words.
"Tell me, Mr. Clarkwell, what decided you on a career as a private detective?" "Dr. Watson," answered Clarkwell, with a nod in my direction.
"Indeed?" Holmes appeared serious, but I could read a faint look of amusement in his eyes.
"Yes," continued Clarkwell. "Initially, I was strictly an insurance investigator, and only took on private work for my friends or close family. My interest in the profession gradually deepened, and I'll readily admit that my head was more than slightly turned by the doctor's glowing accounts of your successes, Mr. Holmes."
Here it was my turn to redden at Clarkwell's praise, and I hurried to the replenishing of his glass, lest my embarrassment become too obvious. As I did so, I was much relieved to hear Holmes pick up the thread of conversation.
"I trust then, Mr. Clarkwell, that it is a problem of some importance that not only forces you out in this weather, but necessitates the consulting of another private detective."
At Holmes's words, Clarkwell seemed to recall the reason for his visit, and a faint look of worry came into his eyes.
"Yes, Mr. Holmes, I do consider it a pressing problem, and I only hope that you won't laugh at its apparent triviality. It has been weighing on my mind all this month,
to keep listening to this audiobook. I've left you a link in the description so you can do it at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.